The Pacific is the largest of the world's 5 oceans. The land surrounding the Pacific is known as the Pacific Rim, or due to its volcanic nature, the Ring of Fire. This is the home of a richly diverse community of cultures. From indigenous villages in the far North Pacific to booming cities in China, millions of people call the Pacific Rim their home. The region encompasses the majority of Asia and Oceania, the Russian Far East, and the west coast of the Americas. The Pacific Rim is also home to a broad array of ecosystems, from the tropical south to the frozen north. Among these are dense tropical forests of Southeast Asia, endless forests in Russia, arid deserts in China's Wild West, tundra, permafrost, and volcanic regions in Kamchatka and Alaska, the rugged California coastline, and of course, the Pacific Ocean itself, a treasure trove of marine biodiversity, from underwater coral environments to the massive gray whale. Wildlife and wild places flourish around the Pacific, but the region's booming economy has put much of this living environment at risk. Urban areas from China to California have long relied on the resources around the Pacific to fuel their growth. As these economies expand, so does their appetite for resources. The fossil fuel reserves in the Russian Far East and Siberia rival those of the Middle East. The area is increasingly coveted for oil and gas to supply the booming economies of Japan, South Korea, China, and North America. The Pacific is home to over 60% of the world's fish catch, but overfishing and habitat destruction are decimating the Pacific's fish populations. Logging and land clearing, much of it illegal, is on the rise around the entire region. The species and habitats native to the Pacific Rim are on a collision course with industrial development. Vast areas have become hotbeds of resource colonization, corruption, and sacrifice zones. Since 1987, Pacific Environment has supported grassroots activists around the Pacific Rim who put themselves on the line to prevent irresponsible development projects. We employ 4 main strategies.
Every year, Pacific Environment sends over a third of our budget to grassroots environmental groups in Russia and China. In total, we help fund over 75 small citizens groups that are working to protect their environment.
By funding grassroots organizations, we're supporting community involvement in places where it's often discouraged.
We don't barge into countries and tell activists what they should do or how they should operate. Rather, we support those strategies that work best in those particular regions. The best role we can play is to support local organizations that are going to truly take effective action to protect their environment.
Pacific Environment supports development that is sustainable both environmentally and economically.
We work with our partners in China on marine conservation issues through promoting awareness of sustainable seafood choices and preventing the illegal trade of marine species.
The California lifestyle is creating sacrifice zones around the world, and this is ever so apparent in our energy policy. We currently do not allow oil and gas drilling off of much of the coast of California. But currently there's a push to import liquid natural gas into California from Sakhalin Island, Russia, where oil and gas drilling is endangering a pristine marine ecosystem. This is why Pacific Environment promotes clean energy in our home state of California. As California is the world's 10th largest energy market, this has global repercussions.
Pacific Environment's Responsible Finance Campaign is having a global impact by holding banks and multinational corporations accountable for their investments and their global operations.
We confront large public banks that support destructive natural resource projects with taxpayer money. Often, these banks are linchpins in supporting these large projects, and the projects themselves can't move forward without taxpayer support.
There's two kinds of public banks that Pacific Environment focuses. One is called export credit agencies, and an example of that is the U.S. Export-Import Bank. Another is multilateral development banks, and an example of that is the very well-known World Bank Group. In 1996, Pacific Environment sued one of these agencies, the U.S. Overseas Private Investment Corporation, under the U.S. Freedom of Information Act. We won that lawsuit, forcing the agency to begin to disclose environmental information, including environmental impact assessments. We soon learned that there's over 30 of these kinds of export credit agencies worldwide, and we learned that collectively their financing far exceeds that of the better-known World Bank Group, particularly in the extractive sectors, oil, mining, and gas. We realized that a much larger campaign would be needed, and so we, together with partner organizations, formed ECA Watch, a global network to reform export credit agencies.
Many of the world's industries view the Pacific Rim as an economic trading zone. Over 70% of the world's timber is traded across the Pacific, while fossil fuels such as crude oil and liquid natural gas are increasingly moving across the Pacific.
People in the U.S. might not think about ancient forests in Russia when they buy a piece of furniture, or they may not realize that sandstorms in China blow across the Pacific and impact our air quality, or that 50% of their fish comes from the Bering Sea in the northern reaches of the Pacific. But in that sense, we're not just an economic community, we're an ecological community as well.
Pacific Environment builds communities of citizens working locally but thinking globally. We're doing this through international exchanges, information sharing, and by forging Pacific Rim coalitions. Pacific Environment has played a key role in the growing environmental movements in Russia and China. By using these strategies, we and our partners have protected millions of acres of biodiversity in Russia. Our partners have protected 3 million acres in the Bikine watershed from logging by the Hyundai Corporation. Set aside 1.6 million acres of the Amur watershed as a protected territory. Created new UNESCO World Heritage Sites, such as the Kamchatka Peninsula and the Golden Mountains of Altai. Our work emboldened citizens to take action for the environment. In Russia, the people responded to President Vladimir Putin's anti-environmental agenda with an unprecedented 2.5 million signatures in opposition. This put him on notice that the environmental movement was a force to be reckoned with. Our partners' anti-poaching work brought back the endangered Siberian tiger, whose numbers have doubled to 450 since 1994. A large dam proposed for southern China's New River was postponed after citizen action and international pressure called attention to its potential devastating impacts. The habitat of the critically endangered western Pacific gray whale was given a reprieve when the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development ordered Shell to improve its underwater pipeline off of Sakhalin. These are just a few of our stories and our victories. You can join us and help grow the Pacific Rim environmental movement with a donation of any size. Go to pacificenvironment.org to learn more and find out how you can support our efforts.
I've been listening to the music of nature. I've been tuning to the wonder of the earth. I've been listening and I've been relating. Now I feel the reason for our birth. Everything here sings like a bird on the wing. Now I get back home and find out they think it's all for sure. Now I get back home and find out